watching NBC4, the Tri-State News Channel. And now, Jim Watkins, Chris Cimino, and Glenn Walker. This is News Channel 4 at 11.
Rushing water turns Midtown streets into rivers. A major water main break this afternoon has immobilized much of the subway system. Firefighters and transit workers waded in knee-deep waters both under and above ground. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Watkins. It's not looking a heck of a lot better tonight. The water main burst around 4 this afternoon at the 40th Street and Broadway station, but the problem reached far beyond that point. We have live team coverage tonight with ANDRIA Hall a block away from the break, and Andrew Glassman, who was first on the scene this afternoon. Andrew?
Well, good evening, Jim. The flooding spread from here at 40th Street throughout the west side and made it all the way downtown. Many people were inconvenienced, but fortunately, no one was hurt in all the confusion. Now, they have finally shut off the flow of water at the site of the break, which is at 40th Street and Broadway. They're finally getting in and digging out the scene of the break. It was a major rupture, and the effects are likely to be felt for days. The source of the chaos is a water main 4 feet wide and nearly 90 years old. It gave way under the corner of Broadway and 40th Street. The temptation is to call the result a river of water. Those who had to wade through it and work to stop this mess would call it nothing less. Subway stations throughout the west side of Manhattan took on water through the fresh air vents. It also cascaded down the stairways. Inside the stations, the water is said to be 3 feet deep. Tracks are reportedly submerged and trains flooded. Thousands had to be evacuated. Underground, it sounded like a bomb had gone off.
I was on the platform sweeping, and I heard this explosion. I came back upstairs, and all of a sudden the water started coming down. And when I looked up, I had to try to secure the gates, close the gates off, and get the people off the plat, let them go the opposite way away from the water.
The subway service on the west side of Manhattan, on Broadway, on 7th, and on 8th Avenue is closed down. And it'll be closed down until this entire flow of water is stopped, and then they can pump out the trains.
The fire department checked basement transformers and worked to prevent an explosion. Utility crews had trouble closing the underground gates, which direct the water through this main. It continued for hours out here. Even hours after the sidewalk first opened up, the water continued to spread at full force. At its deepest, it is practically knee-deep, and it spread out at this pace for blocks in every direction. Cars splashed through some of the intersections. Many streets were closed off entirely. Pedestrians tried to salvage their shoes. Businesses tried to do the same to their merchandise. Water leaked into the basement of this fabric store, and it's not the first time. There was a water main break on this same street last summer. It's tough to stay in business when the water mains repeatedly flood your store.
We will continue, and I had plenty of help from my help. They're all going to hang in until this thing is over. And hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Hopefully not. Here are the specifics on the subway closings at this hour. The 1, 2, and 3 trains have been shut down from 96 to Chambers. The N and R trains are not running from Lexington to Whitehall. The A and C trains not running in both directions from Canal to 59th. The E train is not running from 5th to the World Trade Center. The S shuttles are out of service, and the number 7 train is stopping at Grand Central. Now, we're told that the water main that burst today is not the same water main that gave way a year ago. Right now, the Coast Guard has been called in to help pump out the New York City subway system, and it looks like there could be street repairs in this area for days to come. My colleague Andrea Hall is joining me out here tonight. I know you've been watching people try to navigate around this mess tonight, Andrea. What are you finding?
And it is a mess, that's for sure, Andrew. In fact, at one point, all of the West Side subway service was out. At this hour, there is a Grand Central shuttle that will take you from the west side to the east side. And as you know, Andrew, this water main break could have been much, much worse, but it certainly could not have been any more inconvenient for those people trying to get around tonight. Sandra Pinner was only trying to get to work.
The 2 train never came. They made me go back to 110th Street in Manhattan, and I went all the way there to 96th Street. Then they told me there was no 2 trains going on the west side.
3 hours later, she finally made it to 7th and 41st Street, only to be told by police she couldn't cross the barrier. Her job just a block away. And at the Times Square Gourmet, the restaurant was empty, but the basement was full of water. Stark, how high was the water before? How high did it come up?
It's much, it come over here.
At least 55 police officers were on the scene as the backhoes gripped into the asphalt to pull away broken pipe. What's the status?
Status is that we're now digging up the street. We're excavating to take out the piece of damaged pipe. The water is off, and now we just have a big mess to clean up.
And at the height of the water main break, the scene was a dramatic one to witness.
The volume of water was enough to scoop a small child off its feet. It was amazing, the volume of water that was going down the street.
What did you think was happening?
We just thought it was one more thing that happens in New York, and sure enough, we found out from someone a water main broke, so you just never know what's going to happen.
I was sure the Statue of Liberty was on fire, but I was mistaken.
Don't start that rumor. People will begin to panic. Of course, there was no panic tonight. In fact, the mayor and the commissioner of the DEP praising workers for responding so very quickly tonight. In fact, let's talk about those subway closing. Of course, the MTA is claiming that the IND and BMT lines will be full service tomorrow. And what the big hope is, of course, is that the IRT subway service will be back online come rush hour on Monday morning.
Andrea, I know a lot of the streets around the Times Square area were shut down. It looks like that's still the case behind you. What is the traffic situation right now?
The traffic situation specifically right here near the water break site, of course, is not very much at all, except for pedestrian traffic. People, gawkers, looking to see what's going on. Now, up 7th Avenue was pretty congested earlier. I would suggest that probably going toward the Lincoln Tunnel will be congested again tonight. Reporting live from Times Square, Andrea Hall, back to you, Jim.
Andrea, thank you very much. The intersection of Broadway and 40th is very familiar to water main repair crews, as Andrew referred to a short while ago. The date, July 9th of last year, a 40-inch main broke, causing a virtual geyser to erupt in the street. Looks a lot like it did today. It took 2 days in this case to pump the water out of the subways. We will have the very latest on this latest break tomorrow on Weekend Today in New York, beginning at 7 a.m. Other news now. There is a bizarre story from a Newark cemetery tonight. The State Consumer Affairs Department says operators of the Rosemount Cemetery crammed 9 bodies into paupers' graves designed for 5. There were also charges Rosemount put bodies under sidewalks and that it took graves it had sold years ago and sold them again. Rosemount has paid a $60,000 fine and agreed to operate ethically from now on. Under the agreement, families offended by the cemetery's action can sue for damages. Desmond Robinson, the black undercover transit officer shot in the subway in 1994 by a white officer, is in jail tonight on a very serious sex charge. Robinson, in the maroon shirt, is retired on a disability pension. He was arrested after a female police officer who once had been assigned to counsel him complained. The charges were read at his arraignment tonight: sodomy, attempted rape, sexual abuse, assault, weapons possession. The judge set bail at $35,000.
Officer Robinson emphatically denies that he did anything wrong. He's bewildered by the charges, and he basically asked all New Yorkers to withhold judgment.
Well, Robinson had taken the female officer out for dinner Wednesday night. She says the incident occurred in his car at Houston and Mercer Streets. A method to ease the commute hits the Throgs Neck Bridge at midnight. It's called Easy Pass. Here's how it works. Drivers pay a fee in advance, and a small electronic tag is mounted inside on the car's windshield. The toll is deducted automatically as the car moves through the toll lanes. Easy Pass lanes are also set up at the Marine Parkway, the Cross Bay, and the Verrazano Narrows bridges. No easy passage through the Lincoln Tunnel until tomorrow afternoon. Repair work on the part of Route 495 leading to the tunnel resumed an hour ago and will continue until 3 p.m. tomorrow. Doesn't look like it's causing any problems at this time. At least one lane of traffic will remain open during the repair work. Slowdowns also this weekend for Long Island Railroad riders. As track and signal work being done means buses will be replacing trains between Hicksville and Jamaica on the Ronkonkoma and Port Jefferson branches, between Oyster Bay and Jamaica on the Oyster Bay branch, and on the Port Jefferson branch, New Hyde Park to Westbury. Westbound passengers will take buses to Jamaica. Plan for an extra hour of travel time. Getting the upper hand on Western wildlife, that's still ahead on News Channel 4. Also, an explosive night in the South as houseboats go up in flames. Some tips every new parent can use if your infant fights falling asleep at night. Plus, some gas prices we have never seen before. News Channel 4 continues in a moment.